ho, mori tu, mori ora, kia tatou, homi hui taiki. Well, kia ora everyone, and welcome to this Discussing Tourism webinar. My name's Steve Hanrahan. I'm the Advocacy Manager for TIA and Facilitator for today's webinar. Today the topic is Wellbeing Strategies for Challenging Times. And TIA are pleased to bring you this webinar in partnership with our strategic partner Marsh. Marsh is the world's leading insurance broker and risk advisor, serving commercial and individual clients with data-driven risk solutions and advisory services. Our presenter today is Rachel Doody, who's the General Manager of NZProvide. And we're also joined by Adam Wilson. Adam's the Senior Risk Advisor at Marsh, and he'll commence the webinar with some opening comments. Thanks. Following the presentation, there'll be the opportunity for some Q&A. And please note the Q&A button at the base of the screen. You all know it well by now, and send your questions through. The webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes. So, Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Look, just a really quick intro from me. I'll be Marsh's Key Relationship Manager for the TIA and all the members. So Marsh, we've also added a regional support network of risk advisors throughout New Zealand. So we can arrange face-to-face meetings for any members in their region of the country. We offer free risk advice to any TIA members, so please don't hesitate to get in touch. My contact details will be shared following the webinar, along with the webinar recording. Okay, that's it from me. I'll hand back to Steve.
Great, thanks Adam. So Rachel, good to have you here today, and over to you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I will just share my screen with you all. So you should all be able to see my screen now, and thank you all for joining us. It's great to be here. So NZProvide are a division of Marsh, and we specialise in tailored health and safety and wellness solutions. So we provide services ranging from pre-employment screening to telehealth GPs to preventative wellbeing programs, so end to end. And what we thought we'd do today is we'd share some key insights we're hearing, seeing, and we're now receiving evidence in the marketplace to demonstrate what's happening from a wellness perspective, and also solutions available to support your business. So the three key areas we thought we'd focus in on is managing COVID-19 and health and safety risk, infection control and influenza, and some insights around what we can expect there, and also employee anxiety and stress, and how to support your employees whilst managing a productive workforce. Please do not hesitate to ask questions as we go along, and definitely we can finish up with Q&A at the end. So the great news is that obviously overnight we're down to level 1, and hopefully a trans-Tasman bubble in the near future. So we will now enter into a new level and a new normal for health and safety. And so we still continue to have the need to ensure our businesses meet the Health and Safety at Work Act and any other applicable health and safety requirements. And ultimately, the responsibility to meet health and safety legislation does sit with either business owners or company directors. And we have had quite a bit of concern raised from our directors around liability and ensuring that they're doing everything that they need to be doing to meet the health and safety requirements. So we are absolutely here to support you around people risk, and similar to what Adam was saying around your complete risk, people risk being part of that, we're here and available to TIA members. So a couple of practical solutions that we have available right here and right now is we do have a complimentary risk assessment, which can be used to make sure that your business is complying with requirements, but also supporting you to put some proactive measures in place to minimise risk, and part of this being risk of infection and risk of COVID-19. So to support this, we also have a panel of experts to answer any questions you might have around safe operation for your business. And this can range from a single question, and we've definitely had clients that just needed a single question answered and they just could not find the answer anywhere else. We're absolutely here to support you with that, through to comprehensive policy development. So it's definitely an interesting time around COVID, and COVID now moving forward will form part of our health and safety management processes and systems that we need to have in place. The experts do indicate that there may be some likelihood of cases increasing in the future, so it's great to have proactive measures ready to go to combat this. Which then brings me on to infection control. So in some ways, we've all become experts in infection control. We understand how to appropriately wash our hands, how to use sanitizer. But on the other hand, we've actually been extremely protected from any form of exposure due to social distancing and ultimately lockdown. So one of the issues which we are starting to see is that we're beginning to enter into the traditional influenza and viral season, which does see an increase in absenteeism. And obviously now employees with cold or flu-like symptoms are unable to be at work. And we have a lot of clients concerned that they need their staff, particularly now that they can be trading. They need their staff, particularly also those that know their business and processes, to maximise their revenue opportunity per trading day. And as I mentioned, we are expecting that the flu season, which has actually been delayed because of lockdown, so normally would have come earlier, this year we're expecting that to peak over the next month. So it is a really good idea as a starting point to encourage your employees to have a flu vaccination. Interestingly, the research does show that the flu vaccine not only decreases your likelihood of getting the actual flu, it also decreases the severity of any other illness that you pick up for vaccinated individuals. So it actually would help to decrease the absenteeism rates within your business for other viral infections, which we will expect to see, particularly as social engagement starts to increase. It's also not too late. So often people will ask me, well, isn't it too late to get the flu vaccination now? It's sort of, we're already in June. And actually, as long as the flu is circulating in the community, it's not too late. The other concern I've had raised from many employers, organisations and individuals is how do they get the flu vaccine? So the supplies around the country are varied. Flu vaccines are still available from many GPs and pharmacies. So if you wanted to just encourage your employees to contact their local pharmacy or GP, that's definitely an option. The other option, if you're looking to support your employees with a flu vaccination, is we offer a voucher system, redeemable at over 330 pharmacies nationwide. And we only invoice for vouchers that are redeemed as opposed to issued. We manage all of the administration for you, and we can guarantee access to vaccines. So that's definitely something to consider if that's something that would be beneficial to your organisation. A big topic which has come up and we will continue to see has been around anxiety and stress. And that's not just for our employees, but for yourselves on the call as well. It doesn't pick certain people, certain levels of seniority or geographic location, as I'm sure we all know. And just to put mental health and wellbeing into perspective, at normal times, 25% of all adults in New Zealand will have a diagnosable mental health issue that will impact on their wellbeing. Also at normal times, 10% of all New Zealand adults will have experienced some form of psychological distress in the last 4 weeks. So that's at a normal time. If we then add in the challenges that we've seen in our current environment, you can understand that these stats would start to increase. So common challenges, just to talk through some of them that we have seen that definitely have had an impact on people's mental health and well-being, have been really varied. So we've definitely had reduced freedoms and choices. So we've had the decreased ability around how to spend our time. and for many people where they can spend their time as well. We've had physical and geographical isolation, and we know we've previously been restricted to our homes and unable to travel, so I'm sure you all know very well. And moving forward, that may continue to increase or remain the same as well, that there is a limitation around our ability to move geographically, and that may create varying levels of isolation for individuals. We've also had forced routine changes, and as much as we all probably hate to admit it, humans are actually creatures of habit and we really benefit from routine. So we've all been forced to adjust to this new level of normal over the past 2 to 3 months. And what's interesting is now that we're returning to level 1, there can be a feeling that actually, oh, we're just returning back to normal. But actually what's happening is we're being forced again to go through a new routine change. And for many people that can be quite unsettling and generate anxiety, stress, and other mental health concerns. It is potentially likely that that forced routine change will continue through the rest of 2020. We've also had a loss of control and uncertainty, and again, as human beings, we actually by nature, we like to have control and certainty. And without this, we worry about our future state for both ourselves and our families and friends. And that's hardwired into our primal instincts. And there's also been pressure on personal relationships and disconnection. And we know that the social engagement we've had has decreased. And again, there's beginning to be new normals around how we engage with others. And lastly, for many, there's been financial security for themselves and their families. And we all know how much pressure that places us under. So in order to really understand how these challenges impact on our well-being, the best place to look is actually the key factors that contribute to our well-being. So if we look at the Healthy Minds Wellbeing Wheel, this image documents 6 key factors which have strong scientific evidence that support their effect on mental health and well-being. So all of these factors work together to contribute to an individual's overall well-being and mental health. And if we just take a couple by example, when we consider the past 2 to 3 months in New Zealand, we can see that many of the key components to our well-being have actually been challenged by the limitations that have been placed on us. So for example, if we look at fun, interest and social life being a key component to our well-being in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, we know that obviously we've been restricted to our homes. Many of the hobbies, sports, etc. we like to do have been limited. So we've actually had very little social engagement. Also in the top right-hand corner, you can see biological needs and bodily health, and that being a key factor to well-being, which works into the other components to overall support our feelings of well-being and mental health. And interestingly, the stats have shown us, and for some this may not be a surprise, but across the country during levels 4, 3 and 2, our biological needs and bodily health as a whole have actually dropped off. So some key components to this are sleep and nutrition. Interestingly, the calories consumed per day for the average New Zealander have increased over lockdown, may or may not be surprising to some of us. And the calorie component made up of sugar has actually increased over the lockdown period. So that's negatively affected our nutrition. We've also seen overall poorer quality of sleep reported. And interestingly, one of the key things that help support our sleep is actually time outside. And that on a daily basis, it helps regulate our circadian rhythm. And many people that have either not been working or working from home have spent increasing periods of time indoors, which has meant, not going down to the local cafe and getting outside, not walking to the bus stop, not spending time outside in their jobs. And as a result, unfortunately affected our sleep and resulted in poorer quality of sleep. So it's interesting to see, and you can start as you move around each of the key wellbeing components. I'm sure we can all think of one or two things that have actually negatively affected one of those key components over the last couple of months. The good news is that with a move down to level 1 and an awareness of what actually supports our own wellbeing, and bearing in mind these 6 key factors, we can actually put some steps in place to improve our own well-being. And it's going to be a whole lot easier to do some of those things, like engage socially, like hopefully get better sleep and have more structured nutrition, like do more exercise as sports resume. But there's one key area which doesn't feature in many wellbeing programs, if virtually any, broadly, and that most people wouldn't have had any exposure to, and that's the psychological skills component. So a really important part to our mental health, well-being and performance. And interestingly, psychological skills were once really only taught when an individual had experienced a decrease in mental health or had become mentally unwell. And they were often only taught in therapy. However, there is now strong evidence which undoubtedly indicates teaching psychological skills boosts mental health, well-being, and improves performance for all individuals. So both supporting employees or individuals who might be challenged with mental health to improve their well-being, but also supporting your employees who might be highly functioning to optimize their performance. And this is very similar in that if we consider maybe the last 10 to 15 years, many sports people didn't have psychological skills training, and many now definitely do, and that helps to get that extra 2% edge. So that's the same way that you can support your employees who are highly performing, or yourselves, to find that extra edge and ultimately drive your business. So the components of the wellbeing wheel all contribute to our mental health, and they exist for everyone on a continuum. So at one end, there is dysfunction and disorder. So that's the red end, where we're unable to work or function. And at the other end is optimal performance. So it's important also to note that the research does tell us there's a lag effect. So if we were to survey all of our employees last week versus in 2 weeks' time, where an employee feels they sit on this continuum would likely change and potentially could decrease, even though things that drive their well-being have actually become more accessible to them. And in the same way that returning soldiers don't necessarily know at that point in time or can register their well-being, and it deteriorates on their return. So we do know that it's a common phenomena when individuals are placed under stress, that there is a lag effect on their mental health and well-being. So we also know that when there's a decrease in well-being and mental health, and which we know for individuals across New Zealand in all industry groups and all age ranges is a concern, that it is one of the leading contributors to absenteeism, presenteeism, an increase in injuries, and also a decrease in productivity. And if we take last year, for example, absenteeism cost 1.79 billion across the country. And to put that into context for your employee numbers, a median cost of $1,000 per employee per year. So it definitely has a high cost, and we can expect to see some of that increase. However, we can put things in place to mitigate that. And there's good evidence to show with robust, evidence-based and effective wellbeing programs, you can effectively prevent absenteeism, decrease absenteeism at any rate, and drive productivity within your business. And there's good evidence to support with every $10 that you, with every $1 that you spend, there's a return of up to $10. The key is that the programs that you do put in place are evidence-based and effective, and need to cover 3 key areas. So, and that's to ensure those returns. So what we need to do is have treatment support first of all. So we will have employees within our organisations who will be experiencing stress and anxiety and will be trending towards the red end of the continuum. So ideally what we have available for the employee is something that supports them to return to functioning within their workplace. It supports the employee, it supports yourself as the employer, and it's a collaborative approach. Just a note on EAP, because many organisations do have this in place, one of the challenges with EAP is that it's employee focused and doesn't often give the employer any information or guidance on how to support that employee. So EAP alone does not typically lead to very strong treatment return on investments. EAP used in collaboration with other services does have higher returns. The second area that's important is really around that yellow mid part of the continuum. So we want to make sure that we're supporting employees and ourselves and making sure that we don't slide down towards the red. So ideally we have programs in place which proactively support an employee, and they can be things like wellbeing calls to employees to check in on how they're managing, or conversations between a manager and an employee on site. They can be programs to encourage employees to report pain or discomfort as soon as any symptoms arise. And there's many other good ideas in that space. And then ultimately at the green end, we want to have prevention. And so that's really the key in teaching psychological skills to help promote individuals' well-being, and also ensure that individuals stay near the top end of the continuum. And it's essentially like a psychological immunization. So that's really what your prevention program is aiming to do. And key to that prevention is that you have the psychological skills component included. So with that said, what we actually do have available is on Thursday this week, a session with a clinical psychologist who delivers this training for us. So he'll teach the basic psychological skills to give you an idea of what these are, how they're taught, and a bit of a taster for how they might be applicable for your organisation. So if you're interested in attending that webinar, please do reach out to Adam or myself, and we'd be more than happy to send you through the invite. It's complimentary for TIA members. There are a range of other options in the prevention space from our partners Healthy Minds around wellbeing workshops and training options, and we'd be more than happy to talk you through which ones would be best suited for your organisation, if that's something that's of interest. So the second coming down into that support, and that's really around that middle of the continuum, helping to stop people from sliding down into the red. We offer first aid mental health training. We offer wellbeing calls, and we've rolled those out for a number of organisations just recently, and an early intervention program where your people have one point of contact linked through to a wellbeing advisor if they do have any feelings of stress or anxiety or pain or discomfort. And we can address that straight away and prevent it from becoming an injury or absenteeism issue. And then lastly, we do have treatment support. So we have a team that can work in with your EAP provider to provide services to an individual who is experiencing an issue. And what we do find is the days off work and sick days taken essentially are a lot lower when an employee engages that service versus EAP alone. And on average, they're 2.2 days lower. We also have an expert treatment provider network. So should you have an employee who has a significant or challenging health issue and you're unsure how to progress their rehab or progress them back to work or help them return to work, then we can support you with that as well. So I think the key is really to have that and see that strong return on investment to support your employees and ultimately drive your business. There are 3 key areas that you need to consider through from prevention support to treatment. Many options are available in this space. There's lots of things that are available free of charge and in the community. And so sometimes it can be just a bit of a matter of talking through the needs of your business, talking through geographically where you're placed and the employees that you have, and figuring out what options might suit you best. So we definitely can support you with either just pieces of the puzzle or the full offering, if that's what your organisation needed. But definitely the key takeaway for me would be, as Adam said, around the Marsh team, is just letting us know if you do have a need to talk further around your people risk, and we'd be more than happy to talk you through that. And also just to reiterate, the session on the 11th of June at 11 AM would be a great one to attend if you were able, a real taster, even just for yourself, around improving your own well-being, but also to give you an idea of how you can support that for your employees. So with that said, Steve, shall I hand back to you to manage any questions that we might have?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Rachel. So yes, for attendees, if you've got any questions for Rachel or for Adam, then send them through now. I've got a couple here, Rachel, that I might just kick into just to, while waiting for others to come through.
Sure.
Is there a subscription fee or minimum spend to engage the services of NZProvide?
Yeah, good question. So no, there's not. No, there's not. Essentially, it's on a fee per use schedule.
Okay.
And so there's no subscription fee, and there's no minimum employee numbers. So you could have a business with 2 to 5 people. You could have a business with 500 to 1,000 people, and you would have access to the exact same offering.
So what would it look like if an employer was to engage the services? What would be the next step? They get in touch and then they have a consultation, or how does it work?
Yeah, good question. Yes, so the easiest way is to get in touch. So do feel free, please, to contact me directly. What we'll do is we'll help guide you through a needs assessment of your business, and then give you some recommendations on effective strategies which would deliver a return for your specific business. So it would be a tailored offering for your business based on your needs and risk.
And then if someone does come on board and organise, do they have a relationship manager, a case, someone that they would be able to contact? Because I imagine sometimes these things might happen and with short notice that they might need support.
Yeah, definitely. So we work in with your Marsh client executive so that you've ultimately got one point of contact, but from a people risk perspective, you would have a dedicated account manager. So should anything happen, typically at 5 PM or 6 PM on a Friday night as you're closing up, you have someone that you can call from NZProvide who will support you to put in place the solution that you might need. So absolutely one point of contact. And I think that's really important overall from a Marsh perspective, that we're here to support you and we're dedicated to your business.
So we certainly see that, businesses understand physical health and safety well and manage that well in their businesses. But when it moves into this mental health side of things, it's perhaps with some are further along the journey than others. Do you see it happening more and more that businesses are now starting to ask questions or thinking around how they can make sure they've got they are managing this part of their business well?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple of things which are challenging for organisations. There's a lot that's in the marketplace in the mental health space. So I think for an employer, sometimes it can almost be a bit bombarding as to there's so many options. It's sort of hard to navigate through what you might need and how things will fit together, and ultimately how you ensure a return on that. So I think that's quite a challenging component. So we definitely have more organisations making contact with us, and some ultimately coming through out of need because they're having absenteeism rates that are increasing and it's costing their business. And then needing to know, okay, what do I really need to put in place? So it's definitely increasing. And I think probably depending on which which way you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, will be a problem that will continue to need more attention moving forward. But the good news is it's a bit like a physical illness or injury. There's some really clear evidence-based strategies you can put in place which effectively manage and reduce mental health illness in the same way that you can manage physical injuries. So the good news is we're probably not quite at the peak of the issue, but on the other side, there's some really clear strategies that can help organisations.
Great. All right, well, I think we'll draw it to a close there. So firstly, thank you to Rachel and Adam for the presentation and for bringing light into the topic and making the information available. So thank you. Thanks also to our members for participating today. A couple of closing comments from me. The webinar will be available on the TIA website by the end of tomorrow. And also a reminder to visit our COVID-19 pages on the website. There's lots of current information, advice and support for operators on those pages. Also, if you have any particular queries, then just in general, you need support from TIA, please get in touch with us, either via info@tia.org.nz or call us also to discuss. Rachel's contacts were up there earlier on, but if you missed it, you can get it off the webinar when you look at it online, or just send us a link, an email, and we can send you the details also. And lastly, our next Discussing Tourism webinar is Activating Domestic Tourism. And that's on this Thursday, 11th of June at 2 p.m. And we'll hear from operators and an RTO about how tourism organisations are pivoting to domestic, what lessons they've learned and what changes do they still need to make. So you can register on the TIA website now for the Thursday's webinar. So closing karakia, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te aiao, te aroha me te maruto, tihe moriora. Thank you, everyone.